Let's sit in a comfortable meditation posture and close the eyes. Put your attention on the silence that is always there deep in the mind. Connect with that deep inner silence and become that silence. You are the silent witness. Now listen to the words of the Yoga Vasishta. Book 5, Chapter 34, continuing with verse 47. I am both male and female. I am both boy and girl. I am old as regards my soul, and I am young with regard to my body, which is ever born and ever renewed. The ego is the grass and all kinds of plants on earth. It is also the moisture which grows them, like its thoughts, in the ground of consciousness. In the same manner as herbs grow in holes and wells, have their moisture, the ego or soul is the core and foundation of all substance. It is for pleasure that this ego stretched out the world like a clever boy who makes dolls of clay in his play. This ego is me, who gives existence to all being. And it is I whom they live and move about. Being at last forsaken, by me the whole existence dwindles into nothing. Whatever image is impressed in the clear mirror of my intellect, that and nothing else is in the real existence. Because there is nothing that exists apart from myself. I am the fragrance of flowers and the color of their leaves. I am the figure of all forms and the perception of everything that can be perceived. Whatever movable or immovable thing is visible in this world, I am its inmost heart, without having any of its desires in my heart. As the primary element of moisture is diffused in nature in the form of water, so my spirit is spread over plants and all other things at large in the form of vacuum. I enter inside everything in the form of consciousness, and I extend in the manner of various sensations at my own will. As butter is contained in milk and moisture is inherent in water, so the power of consciousness is spread in all beings, and so ego is situated inside all things. The world at all times, whether present, past, or future ages, exists in consciousness. The objects of intelligence are all inert and devoid of motion. Like the mineral and vegetable productions of earth. I am the all-grasping and all-powerful form of Brahman, which fills infinite space and is free from any diminution or decrease in shape or size. I am this all-pervading and all-productive power known as the universal form. I am the Virat Murti. I have gained my boundless empire over all worlds without seeking or asking for it, and without subduing, like Indras of old, or crushing the gods with my arms. Oh, the extensive silent witness, the Spirit of God. I bow down to that spirit in my spirit and find myself lost in it. As in the vast ocean of the universal deluge. I find no limit to this spirit of the silent witness, as long as I am seated in the enjoyment of my spiritual bliss. I appear to move about like a minute mollusk in the fathomless expanse of the Milky Ocean. This temple of the cosmic egg is too small and constricted for the huge body of my soul, the silent witness. It is impossible for me to be contained in it, just as it is impossible for an elephant to enter into the eye of a needle. My body stretches beyond the region of Brahman. My attributes extend beyond the categories of the various schools of philosophy. And there is no definite limitation given of them to this day. The attributes of a name and body to be unsupported soul to the silent witness are falsehoods. And it is also false to compress the unlimited silent witness within the narrow bounds of the body. To say this is I and this is another is altogether wrong. What is this body, or my want of it, or the state of living or death to me? How foolish and short-witted were my forefathers, who, having forsaken this spiritual domain, wandered as mortal beings in this frail and miserable world. How great is this grand sight of the immensity of Brahman, the silent witness. How mean are these creeping mortals in their high aims and ambitions and all their splendors of royalty. My pure intellectual sight, filled with endless joy, and accompanied by ineffable tranquility, surpasses all other sights in the whole world. I bow down to the self situated in all beings, which is the intelligent and intellectual soul, and quite apart from whatever is the object of reasoning or thought. I, who am the unborn and uncreated soul, rule and triumph over this perishing world by my attainment to the state of the great universal spirit, the silent witness, which is the chief object of gain, the supreme good of mortal beings, and which I live to enjoy. I take no delight in my unpleasant earthly dominion, which is full of painful greatness. I would not like to lose my everlasting kingdom of good understanding, which is free from trouble and full of perpetual delight. Cursed be the wicked demons who are so sadly ignorant of their souls and resort to their strongholds of woods and hills and ditches for the safety of their bodies, like the insects of those places. Ignorance of the soul to serving the dull, ignorant body with articles of food and clothing. This was how our ignorant elders pampered their bodies for no lasting good. What good did my father Hiranyakshipu reap from the prosperity of a few years in this world? What did he acquire worthy of his descent in the line of the great sage Kashyapa? He who has not tasted the blissfulness of the silent witness has enjoyed no true blessing during his long rule of 100 years in this world. He who has gained the ambrosial delight of his spiritual bliss and nothing of the temporary blessings of life has gained something which is ever full in itself and of which there is no end to the end of the world. It is the fool and not the wise who forsakes this infinite joy for the temporary delights of this world. Such a fool resembles the foolish camel, which forgoes his fodder of soft leaves in order to browse the prickly thorns of the desert. What man of sense would turn his eyes from such a romantic sight and like to roam in a city burnt down to the ground? What wise man is there that would forsake the sweet juice of sugar cane in order to taste the bitterness of Nimba? I reckon all my forefathers are very great fools for leaving this happy prospect in order to wander in the dangerous paths of this earthly dominion. Ah, how delightful is the view of flowering gardens, and how unpleasant is the sight of the burning deserts of sand. How very quiet are these intellectual revelries and how very boisterous are the cravings of our hearts. There is no happiness to be had in this earth that would make us wish for our sovereignty in it. All happiness consists in the peace of the mind, which always concerns us to seek. It is the calm, quiet, and unaltered state of the mind that gives us true happiness in all conditions of life, and the true kingdom of things in all places and at all times and under every circumstance in life. The virtue of sunlight is to enlighten all objects, and that of moonlight is to fill us with its ambrosial nectar. But the light of Brahman transcends them both by filling these worlds with its spiritual glory, which is brighter than sunbeams and cooler than moonlight. The power of Shiva stretches over the fullness of knowledge, and that of Vishnu over victory and prosperity. Fleetness is the character of the mental powers, and force as the property of the wind. Inflammation is the property of fire, and moisture is that of water. Silence is the quality of devotees for success in their tapas, and eloquence in the qualification of learning. It is the nature of aerials to move about in the air, and of rocks to remain fixed on the ground. The nature of water is to be set deep and run downward, and that of mountains to stand and rise upward. Equanimity is the nature of Buddhists, and drunken merrymaking is the liking of wine drinkers. Spring delights in its flowering, and the rainy season exults in the roaring of its clouds. Yaksha demons are full of delusiveness. Celestials are familiar with cold and frost, and those of the torrid zone are habituated to its heat. Thus, many other beings are suited to their respectable climates and seasons, and are habituated to the very many modes of life and varieties of habits to which they have been accustomed in the past and present times. It is the one uniform and unchanging consciousness according to its unchanging will and velocity that ordains these many forms and changing modifications of powers and things. The same unchanging consciousness presents these hundreds of changing scenes to us, just as the same and unchanging light of the sun shows 1,000 varying forms and color to the sight. The same consciousness sees at a glance all these great multitudes of objects that fill the infinite space on all sides, and all the three times of the past, present, and future. The identical pure consciousness knows at once the various states of all things presented in this vast phenomenal world, and in all the three times that are the existent, gone by, and are to come hereafter. At one and the same time, this pure consciousness reflects all things existent in the present, past, and future times. It is full with the forms of all things existing in the infinite space of the universe. Knowing the events of the three times and seeing the endless phenomena of all worlds present before it. Divine consciousness continues full and perfect in itself and at all times. Understanding ever continues the same and unaltered in spite of the great variety of its perceptions, of innumerable objects of sense and thought, such as the different tastes of sweet and sour in honey and nimba fruit at the same time. Consciousness, by abandonment of mental desires and knowing the nature of all things, by reducing their dualities into unity, is in its state of acuteness. It views them alike with an equal eye and at the same time, in spite of the varieties of objects and their great difference from one another. By viewing all existence as non-existent, you get rid of your existing pains and troubles. By seeing all existence in the light of nothingness, you avoid the suffering of existing evils. The intellect, being drawn from its view of the events of the three tenses, and being freed from the chains of its fleeting thoughts, there remains only a calm tranquility. The soul, being inexpressible in words, proves to be described only in negative terms. There ensues a state of one's perpetual unconsciousness of his soul or self-existence. In this state of the soul, it is equal to Brahman. This is the silent witness, which is neither nothing at all or all of itself. Its absorption is in perfect tranquility, and this is called its liberation from all feeling. Let us continue now, established in the silent witness, and begin the Trimana Sanyama on the esoteric Mahamantra. Balance all karmic traces that have arisen during today's reading. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Jai Gurudev.